Last year drew a lot of skepticism around this defensive line and how good the 49ers defensive line could be. The stats don't lie. The 49ers defense, according to The Athletic, regressed statistically, dropping from number 1 to number 12 in expected points added per play from 2022 to 2023. And the run defense had slipped particularly badly, dropping from number 2 in 2022 to number 26 in 2023. Well, that's a serious problem, and it sounds like the 49ers have solved it. Of course, skeptical moves from the 49ers, and not skeptical to most of the faithful. I feel like most people have been understanding and in some ways happy with the changes. But 49ers, from the national point of view, they dropped a lot of big names. Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, Chase Young, Cleveland Farrell, Randy Gregory. These are big name individuals. Okay, now we saw what they contributed and how important they were, and we saw, I think, the value there for some of these guys. Definitely, like Eric Armstead, that value was clear. Not the best player in the world. I'm not trying to act like we got rid of our best defensive player, but we did get rid of a stud, and it was more about cap space than it was about his abilities. I think that's just my question or my opinion. But here's the cool thing. Pro Football Focus actually gives us a really cool picture into how we've improved the defensive line this year. And I've heard, even in the comments, a lot of people who are still very much skeptical about how we're going about trying to solve these problems. So let's get into it. In today's video, I'm going to tell you what PFF said, how they were right, in my opinion, how they are right, and how they haven't even told the whole story yet. It gets even better. If you're new here, I'm Nate. We are talking the San Francisco 49ers. It would really help me out if you hit that subscribe button if you want to be a part of the action, a part of all the conversation. So the good news is PFF ranked the 49ers defensive line second in the NFL, second to only the New York Jets, which I'm going to say is pretty solid, considering a huge step backwards last season. Not just for Nick Bosa, but for the whole line. It was definitely a step back. Here's the whole list, though, while we're at it. Comment below. How do you feel about the list? Jets coming in first, and they have that young, very talented defensive front. Then you have 49ers, Eagles, Lions, Browns, Cowboys, Colts, Steelers, Raiders, Texans. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments how you feel about, one, being ranked number 2. Do you agree with it? Do you feel like we have made the offseason moves in order to be ranked number 2? Do you feel like we should be ranked number 1 and the Jets are overrated? Let me know what you think in the comments. I look forward to joining the conversation there. But here's the deal. PFF is right. In my opinion, PFF is absolutely right. And I'm going to pull up what Pro Football Focus had to say about the number 2 defensive line from the San Francisco 49ers. Let's go. Here is what they had to say. Even with the loss of Eric Armstead this offseason, the star power from the defensive line is too good to ignore. Nick Bosa is a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate, racking up 95 quarterback pressures in the 2023 regular season. Javon Hargrave is close to as good as it gets as an interior rusher, and the team added Leonard Floyd as a complement to the opposite Bosa. Depth is an issue, but the top end of this group is outstanding. And I want to address this one here. How strongly do you guys feel depth is an issue? Again, red and gold glasses, it's always hard for me to look against my bias here, but I'm not sure depth is as big of an issue as they're saying here. And surely, ranking us number 2, I mean, they must say depth is an issue, but they can't possibly think it's as bad as, another team's depth issue, for example. I think the cool thing is this is positive. This is this is a good ranking. I'm happy about the ranking. I feel positive. This is the time of year when all of the companies are out there doing lists, right? It's list season in sports talk world right now, and that's okay. Really cool article, by the way, from David Bonilla over at 49ers Web Zone. Edge rushers Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos signed in free agency. The Niners traded with the Houston Texans for defensive tackle Malik Collins, another big name we need to not forget about. Jordan Elliott from the Cleveland Browns. We haven't talked about Jordan Elliott, but he's over 300 pounds, 6'4", beast mode. And my favorite thing about the guy, and he comes from a good defensive front. From a good defensive team. The Cleveland Browns were solid last season, of course. Great defensive team. My favorite thing is the best ability is availability. And if this guy is part of your depth, you want a guy who's going to show up and be around every single game of the season. That's exciting in my opinion. But continuing on, Floyd, who racked up at least 9 sacks in each of the last 4 seasons. He had a couple 10.5ers there, I believe, is a significant upgrade and as a much needed compliment on the outside to Bosa. The departing Clelin Ferrell finished second among 49ers defensive end last year with 3.5 sacks. Yikes. You'd hope that Leonard Floyd's going to give you more than that. I think he will, and I think he's going to open the door for Bosa at times to get Bosa better numbers after his quote-unquote down year. I mean, it was a down year. It was. I mean, it's not quote-unquote, but, I'm not as down on his year as other people are. The defense, specifically the defensive line, and this is where the problem is. I should have put this in like blue or red or something. The defense, specifically defensive line, was the team's strength under defensive coordinators Saleh and D'Amico Ryans. However, the unit played below the expected standard last year, leading to the dismissal of defensive coordinator Steve Wilks. And we talk about those players all the time that left, right? We talk about Javon Kinlaw, Eric Armstead, Chase Young, Randy Gregory. These are big name dudes, right? Clelin Ferrell just mentioned there too. For some reason, and I'll admit I haven't, all right, but what I fail to remember in that whole piece there is the Steve Wilks aspect. He's also one of the dudes that left. I mean, this is the team looking at a group of people and making a very drastic change. Now that we're here, looking back, that was a big shift. A lot of players, a couple of those guys came in midseason, so I understand. It's not as bad as it probably sounds, but it was a huge change for sure. And I feel, as always, you might be surprised by this, guys. Feeling wildly optimistic about the future. I love the rating. I think that's fantastic. And then of course, lack of depth, quote unquote. I respect that reality. But Yetur Gross-Matos is solid, and Malik Collins is solid. I mean, these are some solid players we're talking about. These are good players. I'm excited about where we're going, how we're growing, and how we're going to be setting up as a defensive front going into this next season. Let me know in the comments what you think about our defensive line. Let me know what you think about being rated number 2. Do you feel as optimistic as PFF and myself feels about the 2024 campaign from the defensive front? We are stacked everywhere you think about it, right? On the offensive side of the ball, we're stacked on part of the offensive line, but okay, I'll say that the offensive line is not stacked, but we're stacked at wide receiver. We're stacked with the best fullback, best running back, great quarterback, top 5 quarterback in my opinion. On the defensive side, and of course tight end, number 1 tight end. Then on the defensive side of the ball, we're also absolutely stacked. In special teams, we have an incredible puncher, by the way. I kind of forgot special teams is out there. I'll move back though to the defensive side. On the front, secondary is second to none. I mean, we are absolutely star-studded, look incredible, and this is going to be a super fun season. I'm really excited. I'm optimistic. You're not surprised by that as always. What a time to be alive.